North Korea fired 3 ballistic missiles less than a day after US President Joe Biden left the region following his summits in South Korea and Japan. It was the first test of Seoul and Washington's strengthened deterrence after the first summit between new South Korean President Yoon-Suk-yeol and President Joe Biden last weekend. Now, as the two allies coordinate in all realms in national security, diplomacy and defence, along with Tokyo to take a joint response against North, we speak with Lim Sang-woo, Director General of North American Affairs at South Korea's Foreign Ministry, and he joins us in the studio today. Very warm welcome to you, Director General. It's lovely to see you today. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
It must have been quite a day for you yesterday.
It was.
Well, yes, so North Korea fired 3 ballistic missiles, of course, on Wednesday, and I believe almost immediately, responding very quickly, your Minister Park Jin, he held phone talks with the US's Antony Blinken, and I believe you must have been in the room or in the loop somehow. And well, my first question is, were the allies prepared for this kind of scenario?
Yes, I did actually sit in the during the phone conversation between my minister and Secretary Blinken. It happened two hours right after the touchdown of President Biden's plane back in Washington, D.C. So yes, the two foreign ministers, they talked extensively on the measures that we should take. But first of all, they condemned in the strongest terms the provocation by North Korea, which is totally unacceptable and a blatant violation of international laws and resolutions that were taken at the UN Security Council. So we are coordinating very closely, monitoring what's happening in North Korea. So you can be rest assured that the Korea and U.S. militaries, they're also on high alert. We are prepared to take on whatever scenarios that might develop, and also at the same time, we leave our door open to North Korea. We've always said that there's no precondition to talking with North Korea, so we just hope that the North Koreans will focus more on the pandemic that is unraveling in their country and not, revert back to their old tactics of making provocations in this region.
And well, you just said that you'd be prepared for any possible scenario. And one of the quite concerning scenarios happened to be, well, the presidential office, Mr. Yoon's office said yesterday that North Korea appears to be preparing for a 7th nuclear test. And well, how are Seoul and Washington really coordinating on that? Are we prepared?
Yes, that is also a very worrisome scenario that we, as I told you, our militaries are very closely monitoring what's happening in North Korea, and we are we're already prepared for anything that might happen again in the near future. And once again, we are in complete unison, not just KOREA-U.S, but also with Japan and the international community as a whole. I know that our representative, our ambassador at the UN, is working very closely with our allies and partners to come up with another resolution at the Security Council to really show the unity, the one voice that the international community is making to condemn North Korea for all the provocations that it's making, and to really deter North Korean provocations.
And at the recent summit between Presidents Yoon-Suk-yeol and Joe Biden over the weekend, they came out with this joint statement, of course, which you, of course, worked on. And some of the key elements of that was extended deterrence and really strengthening that IRONCLAD alliance, really. And it said that Seoul and Washington are considering the placement or deployment of strategic assets. So I suppose in light of what's been happening over the past 24 hours, what kind of measures are you considering? What kind of strategic assets would you be considering deploying to South Korea?
Yes, it was included in the joint statement that was adopted at the summit, and it says expressly that the U.S. will use the full range of its defense capabilities, including nuclear, conventional, and missile defense, and as well as to work closely together on beefing up our extended deterrence. And with that in mind, we actually agreed to reactivate the EDSCG. It's an acronym for Extended Deterrence Strategy Consultation Group, which is actually a 2+2 meaning the foreign ministry as well as the defense ministry together, on both sides getting together to discuss exactly the kind of measures that we'll be taking in strengthening our extended deterrence. And this mechanism was actually set up first back in 2016, but unfortunately after its second meeting, it has not been convened for the past 5 years. So we think that it is really the appropriate time to reactivate this mechanism, and this is where we'll be talking extensively on what kind of measures, what kind of specific or additional measures that will be taken in terms of strengthening our extended deterrence.
Right, and these were some of the very key measures that we now so obviously need at this point, right? Made at this rather historic summit, actually, just last weekend, which you organised, Director General. Now, it was quite remarkable, really. We had President Joe Biden rushing here, just not even a fortnight after President Yoon Suk-yeol was inaugurated, and they held a summit outside of Cheongwade, the former presidential office, to the new Yongsan complex. And what really was the significance of this summit?
Yes, yes, indeed. The president's visit by President Biden happened just after 10 days after our inauguration of our new president. So I think it's pretty much the shortest time frame within which we had a KOREA-U.S. summit in our history after the inauguration of a new administration. So it was really historic. And of course, President Biden was the first official head of state to make official visit to our new presidential office in Yongsan. And I could tell you that it was the two leaders when they met. It was a great meeting of minds, with similar outlook and similar values, because I think they were able to formulate a real trusting relationship, because they both have this clear belief, like steadfast belief in our shared values, core values of freedom, democracy, and human rights.
I think with this summit, what was quite remarkable was that we saw very traditional security and simply trade ties really evolving into something more across diverse fields. It's now become something of a value-based alliance, Director General. And what would you say are some of the most successful outcomes of this meeting that you'll be prioritizing and pursuing? Yes,
it's hard to really pinpoint out just a couple of elements from this summit, because the statement that we were able to produce at the end of the summit was really comprehensive, and it comprises pretty much all areas that you can think of in furthering KOREA-U.S. cooperation. So we start out with the Korean Peninsula, as we talked before we talked about the extended deterrence, how we can further strengthen our alliance, initiate discussions on expanding exercises. But looking beyond the Korean Peninsula, we also talked about the regional challenges and what Korea and the U.S. can do together, especially in terms of the economic security issues that really have become salient in this time and age. And beyond the regional issues, we also talked about how Korea and the U.S. can tackle global issues together, such as the pandemic, the climate change challenges, and so forth.
And well, even before the summit, your minister was very busy trying to really bolster the bilateral ties with Japan as well. And in this summit with President Biden, President Yoon also, they pledged in their joint statement to bolster the three-way relationship between them. So what are some key priority areas going forward?
Yes, KOREA-U.S. Japan trilateral cooperation is really important. The Yoon administration has made one of the top priorities to really strengthen our trilateral cooperation, because there's so much we can do, all three of us together. As you can recall, this trilateral cooperation first started back in the 90s when we were facing, again, the North Korean threat. Back then it was called TCOG. But it has evolved now. Now it's not just dealing with North Korea, but us three together dealing with regional and global issues. And it's actually in the joint statement that we adopted that the three of us will cooperate closely together, not only on North Korea-related issues, but also on economic challenges in the region.
And of course, the foreign minister, your minister Park Jin, has really stressed the importance of, well, he said that he's going to pursue national interest in diplomacy for South Korea. And, well, for the longest time, though, when it came to the question of national interest, it always seems to have been split between security sort of interests and economic interests. And that always came down to the question and also the pressure on South Korea to choose between its strongest security ally, the United States, and its largest trading partner, China. But is it that simple, though? Or is this basically a false dilemma?
No, I mean, a lot of people talk about how we're faced with a stark choice, how we're stuck between a hard and a rock place. But no, I disagree respectfully with that view because, Korea-U.S. relationship and Korea-China relationship, they're not mutually exclusive. Of course, with the U.S., we have a strong alliance. The U.S. is our only treaty ally, and it is the backbone of our foreign policy. But at the same time, our relationship with China, we have a really great relationship. China is our biggest trading partner. It's our closest neighbor, and we're celebrating 30 years of our diplomatic relations, establishment of our diplomatic relations this year. And our new government has repeatedly said that we'll pursue a really healthy, strong relationship with China too, based on mutual respect. And we're talking constantly with our Chinese counterparts. So, bottom line is that we can develop our relationship with U.S. and at the same time with China.
Right, so mutual respect really being the key word there. And well, although in recent years, there have been growing tensions in the Indo-Pacific region, and various countries have been coming up with their own Indo-Pacific strategies. Even the Europeans have it, right? So South Korea is rather late to the game, if you think about it. While European countries, they seem more concerned about maritime security for their economic interests, and then we have the Quad countries who are very strongly aligned with the United States in terms of dealing with their relations with China. But where will South Korea position itself in the Indo-Pacific? And the key question of will we participate in the Quad activities?
Well, first of all, let's just say that we weren't absent in the region. For the past 5 years, we had our southern 신남방 정책, new southern policy in place, and it really focuses primarily on our relationship with ASEAN countries. So. But with this new administration, I think what we're trying to do now is really expand the scope of our cooperation, not just in terms of the areas, but also the geographical outreach of our policies. So it was actually included in the joint statement that we adopted at the summit. Our president, he announced that we will be pursuing our own Indo-Pacific strategy. And President Biden welcomed our initiative. And so this is in the making. Well, actually, my foreign minister, Park Jin, he made a formal announcement 2 days ago at the foreign ministry that we will be now embarking on this process of making our own Indo-Pacific strategy. And there's actually an Indo-Pacific team put in place under my jurisdiction, actually. So I have another team in my bureau, which is fantastic. So we'll be working with our allies, our partners, and stakeholders, and other the business community to really come up with our own brand of Indo-Pacific strategy.
Well, we'll keep badgering you for details later on that, for previews. And well, I think that really goes to show how South Korea is really expanding its role in the region, in the world, with the president having said in his inaugural speech as well that South Korea is going to play a pivotal role in world affairs in his previous essays too. And well, really, there's been quite a lot of attention on how South Korea has evolved from this shrimp among whales, as it's called itself, surrounded by greater, stronger powers, to something more. And now it seems that we're something of a semiconductor power with, wielding a substantial amount of with soft power as well. So in terms of going forward, well, how do you think South Korea is really going to expand its role in the world? I mean, how will you incorporate this vision that President Yoon has into your foreign policy?
That's exactly the central thinking of the new government's foreign policy. We have this vision, this initiative called the Global Pivotal State. So really, we're going to go beyond the Korean Peninsula and reach out to all corners of the world to really see what we can do, how we can contribute to the freedom, peace, and prosperity of the international community. So I guess what we're going to do is to come up with different strategies that are tailor-made for all these different regions of the world, and Indo-Pacific region being one of the most important regions. That's where we'll be focusing primarily at the time for the time being. And I'm really very excited that Korea will be stepping up and doing its part to make the world a better place. And what I personally think that there's a lot that Korea can bring as a global pivotal state, because it is a cliche, but it is a fact that Korea is probably the only country in the whole wide world that was able to build an economy from the rubbles of a horrific war, and at the same time become a full-fledged democracy. And this actually, really, I think it does inspire other countries, other developing countries, other underdeveloped countries that probably were frustrated at some point in their history, but when they see us, they see a possibility. They can project themselves when they see us that they too can become the second Korea. And that's actually what happened when I was in Madagascar. That was my previous posting was in Madagascar as a Korean ambassador there, and the Malagasy people, we call them the Malagasy, and that's what they talked about when they came to me and when I met all the people there. Really, Korea is the embodiment of possibility, of future hope, I think. So I don't know how we're going to do this, but I would like to translate that into concrete strategy and policy in the process of making our Indo-Pacific strategy.
I certainly remember how you were coordinating all these COVID-19 supplies and also working with the Madagascan authorities to really provide access to good healthcare and really enabling this, South Korea's reach there as well, with our response to COVID-19 also being shared as a good policy there in Madagascar as well. And in terms of going forward, really, South Korea really is no longer shrimp-sized, but it's really in the making of our foreign policy, and where we actively endorse your efforts in terms of launching South Korea to the greater international stage. And well, thank you so much for your time today, Director General.
Thank you for having me.
It's lovely to have you in the studio. Thank you.
Thank you.